Hey guys, Anthony here. It's Saturday. Happy Shabbat Shalom to everybody. It's Saturday, August 19th, 2023. It's about 11 a.m. Eastern Time here where I am. And I put together a short devotional. Hopefully it'll be short. From my notes this week. I'm in the book of Nehemiah, and I've entitled it, Evil Opposition Requires Bold Action. And in looking in the book of Nehemiah, we could see, I'm going to read chapter 2, verse 9 through 11. So let me read that first, and then we'll continue the talk. So we're in chapter 2, verse 9, the arrival of Nehemiah into Jerusalem. So he says this, Then I came to the governors beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. Verse 10. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, heard of it, it grieved them exceedingly that there was come a man to seek the welfare of the children of Yasharel, of Israel. So I came to Jerusalem and was there for 3 days. So we see right off the bat that Nehemiah is sent or commissioned. He went before as cupbearer to the king. If you read the backstory, as cupbearer to the king in Babylon, he had an audience and he was commissioned and received approval to go and rebuild the walls of his home country. But in so doing, this opposition rose up. And I think we could see in our lives today and in our world today that everything that is good and noble and right will be confronted with opposition because the evil one wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Back then, just as he does now. So what did Nehemiah face in this opposition that came to him? He faced ridicule. Ridicule is to deride, to make fun of. So he faced ridicule from these enemies. Particularly, there's 3 named in the specifically in the book of Nehemiah. He faced threats of attack, physical hostilities towards him and his people that were working with him. Discouragement, the state of being discouraged, okay? Extortion or blackmail or intimidation from these people, compromise, settlement of differences by mutual concession. So he was faced with all these challenges, and slander, malicious, false, and defamatory statement or report. So these men came before him and pushed this agenda to get him to ultimately stop. Their goal was they didn't want to see the walls of this kingdom be restored again because they were pushed out of that kingdom by the Almighty, and that kingdom, that area, that land was given to God's people, okay, his chosen people, Yasharel, Israel. And we see that Nehemiah was grieved exceedingly, it says. Your enemies will always be there waiting to confront you and spoil your plans. No matter what you do or I do in ministry, in wanting to do good, there'll always be enemies or opposition, and many will use the same tactics that we see here that Nehemiah's enemies used. And you have Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian. So these men were from cities, or they were like governors in the region serving under the king of Persia. So they were from lands or pushed out of lands before that time that were given to the people of Israel. So Nehemiah does not enter into this battle without pre-planning or pre-preparing for any encounters with his enemies. He intercedes with the Almighty, and you'll see that if you go back and read Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4 through 11. He weeps, he mourns, he fasts, and he prays to the Most High. This is before he even embarks on this journey. These are the things that he does. He honors Yah's covenant and commandments. He confesses the sins of his people, because remember, they're in captivity for a reason, because of their sinfulness, their hard-headedness, their stiff-neckedness, the same things that we display today. The corruption, he admits their corruption and failure to keep the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments that Moses before him gave to the people. So he preconditions and he pre-plans by going before the throne, not sharpening a sword, not getting weapons together. He first seeks quietness. He fasts, he mourns, he prays, he weeps. This is the genuine thing that we need to be doing today as we confront what's coming towards us, what the world is bringing, this world system is bringing to us. And coming this fall, we may be encountering another, let's call it a sickness, a virus. You know what I'm talking about if you read between the lines. I don't want to say too many keywords on YouTube, but if you look at what hospitals and government is preparing for, things are leaking out now, and if you don't know, you're going to hear shortly that some restrictions that we went under prior in the years past, think about 2020, moving forward from there, what we encountered, we may be seeing again. Okay, so prepare yourself for this, what you're going to do, how you're going to react. And we can learn from Nehemiah as he prepared himself to fight this battle that he was going to come into by trying to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. It needed bold action. But before he pushed this bold action, he came before the throne. He was a godly man. He was in a place of leadership, a position of leadership, and he understood the importance of that, and he was commissioned to do this. If you go back and remember, the Babylonians deported up to 2 to 3 million people from Jerusalem over this period of time. And then the people that returned were not that many. There were only about 2% of the people ended up going back to the land. And this time period we're looking at is, just to give you guys a perspective, it's just roughly, it's about 1,000 years after Moses and about 400 years before Messiah, before Jesus. And these men, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, were part of these people groups, again, that I mentioned that God had driven from the Promised Land. These men wanted to see Jerusalem stay in ruins. And our enemies, the enemies of the people, the called out ones, those devoted that worship Messiah in truth and in love, will confront these same types of enemy today. They got different hats on. Some wear suits and ties with little flags on the side. But they're the same enemies that Nehemiah encountered in his time. And we will encounter today. So Nehemiah's response, and I'll close with this, to his enemies is instructive to us. Rather than fear, which I fear is coming upon the world soon, and we see it with fires burning in our states, particularly in Maui most recently. British Columbia, Canada, other areas of Canada, Greece, Oregon. I mean, just look at the news, you'll see. And we fear, rather than fear, worry, or even seek revenge for what is being perpetrated upon the world by these evil, let's call them evil regimes, these systems bringing the world under a singularity, a headship, a one world government, if you will. Nehemiah took the matter before the Almighty. And I'll close with this. Nehemiah 6:14 says this. I'll read it right from here. He says, remember Tobiah. He goes before the throne again. He says, remember Tobiah and Sanballat, my God, because of what they have done. Remember also the prophet Noadiah, and how she and the rest of the prophets have been trying to intimidate me. So Nehemiah doesn't fear, he doesn't worry, and he doesn't seek revenge. He takes his petition before the Almighty. And that's what we need to be doing right now, today. Not next week, not next month. Today we need to be going before the throne of the Most High as believers and admit, like he did in chapter 1, the sinfulness of our people, the falling short of our people, the taking of the word too lightly and eliminating many parts of what it says and saying, oh, we don't have to do that. We could just do it our way. And no, you cannot. It has to be like he said in the beginning. He has to recognize the covenant, the commandments, the corruption, the failure of the people. And he petitioned, he interceded. And that's what we need to be doing today as leaders in our various ministries and in following Yeshua, following Jesus and his commandments. We need to be doing the same thing. In truth and in love, yes, but we need to recognize that the same enemies that Nehemiah confronted, we will be confronting as well. So it's going to take bold action to confront this evil opposition. That's my word for today. Thanks for watching. Stay ready. Yah bless.